And now for a closer look inside these dreary economic numbers and a debate about their impact on U.S. customers and consumers. Let's bring in Democratic strategist Kevin Walling and FreedomWorks economist Steve Moore. Great to see both of you tonight. Welcome back.
Hi, Shannon.
Hey, Shannon.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
All right, this is what the Washington Times says. Biden shrugs off shrinking economy, blames technical factors. Says the president shrugged off data Thursday showing that the U.S. economy had shrunk in the first 3 months of the year. President said the nation's plunging economic activity was the result of technical factors and not indicative of the overall picture. Steve, you saw other members of the economic team saying on Twitter as well, it's not as bad as it sounds. The underlying factors look good and there are good things coming. Are you buying it?
Well, this president isn't exactly Harry Truman, who said the buck stops here. This is a president who always seems to point his finger at someone else when we have these economic problems, whether it's Putin, whether it's Trump, whether it's international factors and so on. But look, the fundamental problem here, and I did go through this report, is when you have 8.5% inflation, Shannon, that makes it really difficult for the economic output to keep up with that pace. It's like, a pole vaulter. You got to get over that 8.5 level just to stay even. And what we've seen now in the last 3 months is wages and salaries are falling behind inflation. Output is falling behind inflation. The stock market's falling behind inflation. And that means people's paychecks are shrinking. They're feeling a little bit poor. And don't forget, Shannon, if we get another quarter of this negative growth, that would technically be a recession.
I mean, it's bad for the country, but it's also bad for Democrats heading into the midterms if we want to talk about the realities of the political impact of this. Wall Street Journal editorial board has this piece tonight. It says the tragedy of the Biden presidency is that it should be presiding over a long post-pandemic boom. Instead, it went for broke to transform the economy by creating a vast and permanent larger entitlement state, and politically broke it soon may be. Kevin, how worried are you about that?
Well, certainly I'm worried about anything when we see some volatility in the market. And Steve's absolutely right that we shouldn't look at just one quarter. We should look at least two to see trend lines because we know quarter to quarter we see some volatility in the market. But here's what I know, right? We see massive imports coming into this country because this country is in the best shape comparative to the rest of the world. China's economy is in a standstill. The EU, with Ukraine in the situation there, is in a standstill. So Americans, to Steve's point, are bringing home more money. We're seeing wages increase now that it's not keeping up with inflation, which is a serious concern. But Americans on a whole are spending a lot more of their money. Consumer spending is up across the board. That's a strong thing for this economy. And because of that trade deficit, that's what we're seeing in terms of this first quarter issue. I would be much more concerned, to Steve's point, and it's a good one, if we see this drop in quarter two as well.
Yeah, and we'll have that information before the midterms. Steve?
Yeah, just a quick response. Look, the reason people are spending more money is because they have to, Shannon, because everything is more expensive, right? You go to the grocery store, you have to pay more. You go to the gas station, you have to pay more. Airline tickets, rental cars, everything's more expensive. But here's the amazing point. Look, this isn't just one quarter of bad data. When Trump left office in January of 2021, which is only 14 months ago, Shannon, the inflation rate was about 1.5%. How have we gone from 1.5% inflation in 14 months to 8.5%? I mean, it's a screw up, and I do think I'm gonna make the point that it's this massive increase in multi-trillions of dollars of government spending that we're borrowing. And then just yesterday, Shannon, you reported on this, that the president's saying, oh, we're gonna relieve $1.5 trillion of student loan debt. Where are we gonna get the money for all of these programs?
Yeah, the loans don't just go away. Someone is going to pay the balance on those loans.
Raising taxes on corporations and the most wealthy in this country.
Okay, let me ask you guys, because I want to get a comment from you two about this disinformation governance board that DHS Secretary Mayorkas has been talking about. Here is Congressman Jim Jordan, a Republican, a conservative, talking about this with Brett on Special Report and about the person chosen to lead this board.
I asked this question to Secretary Mayorkas. Nina Jankowicz is the person in charge. So the person in charge of the Disinformation Governance Board is the same individual who told us the dossier was real and the Hunter laptop story was false. That's the person in charge. That is frightening.
Kevin, I'm just wondering why the administration wants to pick this particular fight right now. A lot of people out there, including independents, are pulling away from them, think they're super woke, and there are all kinds of things going on. Conservatives say everything that's happening with the Twitter meltdown right now proves their point about censorship. Why announce this now?
Because I think there are serious concerns, as we're seeing with the January 6th committee play out, with disinformation in our society. The fact that you have so many candidates on the right, Shannon, running on Trump's big lie still. Now campaigning on that issue, saying that the 2020 election was stolen, is such a damaging issue before this American democracy. We saw how fragile this country and our democracy really was on January 6th. And the fact that those lies are still being peddled is a serious concern, not just for this administration, but for a lot of Americans, including independents in this country.
Okay, the New York Post editorial board tonight has this headline: which useful idiot thought such a clearly partisan hack should be Biden's disinformation czar? They point to her, partisan background and the things that she's done. It says hiring her for this job just shows how detached from reality and broad American society the entire Biden team has become. Final word to you, Steve.
It's a little Orwellian. I'm really nervous about this idea of having government panels trying to determine what's misinformation or not. I mean, we lived through, the Russian collusion hoax, which almost led the president to be impeached on a complete lie. So I'm nervous about this. I don't think it's the responsibility of the government to determine what's true and what's not. I mean, that's why we have science, and that's why we have, a spirited debate about these things.
Well, people don't even agree on what the science is anymore. So
exactly.
We're in a whole new place. But anyway, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat in charge, I think every American should have pause over the government deciding these things. So maybe we can find some agreement on that. Kevin and Steve, we always appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.
Good to see you, Shannon.
You too. All right, the Biden administration